Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Hey Dale, how's it going?
Things are going okay. Well, we made a special trip today. We are the first and only journalists to visit the sugar pine mine in Galice. We're the only ones. And we're going to tell you what our impressions were, and then we're going to play back some audio for you from that. We'll put up videos a little bit later, but we try to get this stuff out to you as quickly as we possibly can. So we've got some pictures to show you, some still pictures. We've got some audio from the interviews, and so we will play everything that we can for you live, and then later on we'll let you know when the videos are going to be placed up there. But to get right to the point, what was your impression of this place, this sugar pine mine out in Galice, Mike?
Oh, well, it's a very, very secluded place. It's very, very peaceful. One of the things that I noticed right off the bat is there is no civilization type noises. It's birds chirping and bugs and things of that nature. Very, very secluded and quiet. Reminds me of where I grew up, and it's a great location. Aside from that, there's an air of seriousness there. No question about that. The men that were there were very serious about what they were doing. They were, and which was distinctly different from one of the guys that works on the mine there, who had a completely different affect about him.
You'll hear that in his voice. I would, Mike. Can you call up that picture of Dolly Madison? I My impression was it's an armed camp. It is. I mean, it might be nice to say, oh, it's five other things. It's an armed camp. And there's a tense atmosphere there, but you can kind of understand why they would be somewhat tense because, I mean, it's a gold mine after all. Do you have that picture?
Of say it again. Which picture you want?
Dolly Madison.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, you broke up.
Dolly Madison.
Oh, Dolly. Yeah, I don't have that picture.
No, there's supposed to be four pictures I sent you. Well,
Yeah.
it's a live show. Okay.
Uh,
Dolly
yes.
Madison is the mining dolly that they had right in front of the mine itself. It looks like a water culvert, and this has been there for well over 100 years.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
and
I do have the picture. By the way, just so you know, and you may never have another need for this information again, that Dolly Madison to me is, is a woman and a figure from the Revolution. What was there? That was a mining,
dolly.
cart or
A mining
yes,
dolly, right? And
or
this is in some people's minds a revolution. No, it's not a revolution. Look, yes, there were weapons, and yes, they were paying attention. Part of the reason is it's a gold mine, and so when people, oh,
there
a
you
gold
go.
mine, and who
Dolly
knows?
Madison. She's the gal who makes cupcakes and Twinkies and stuff like that. That's her
This
right there.
this is what all the fuss is about. It's about a
Right.
100-year-old mining dolly that's in front of a water culvert. But you go
Yes.
in,
Something like
how
that.
far? A 1,000 feet or more?
1,100 feet back into the hill.
Right. And there's gold in that hill. And
Yeah.
so, of course, the people there are going to be paying some attention about who's approaching because not only are they potentially concerned about Indiana Jones and perhaps the BLM, but they're also wanting to be sure that nobody shows up and ends up in that hole and looking for gold. So yeah, they're paying attention to what's going on. I, I would characterize this as saying the reason that people are there is that they're trying to say to the federal government, to the Bureau of Land Management, please make sure that the process is observed in this case, because it may be surprising to you, but there have been instances in the past in our area, in Josephine County, where the BLM has shown up without notice, as they did in this case, although they're supposed to give notice, and they said that they would. They didn't. Where
Right.
the BLM then issues some kind of order saying, we know you've been here for 100 years, but now you got to go immediately. And then step three, you would think, would be the appeal. No, no, honestly, step three often is they burn the cabin to the ground, and
Yeah.
then you go in for your fair hearing. Mike?
Yes, yes, which seems a little bit unfair, slightly unfair. But yeah, apparently they have a history of doing this, and apparently they can't be trusted. And this is a sad thing, especially considering what the basis of this country is, its constitution, which is strives to be fair. And really, what is their beef? Is it so urgent that they have to come into this place where, listen, nobody goes back in these places? This is very, very secluded, and so they're not hurting anybody. And so, I guess the BLM gets a bug up their backside about enforcing their administrative rules, and this type of situation is what results from it.
Now, you know that in this show that Mike and I question authority of all kinds, including media and government and anyone and everyone. I mean, we do question it, and we try to be sure about what we say, and we share our impressions with you, which we will. And in a moment we're going to play the first interview. It's a still picture with audio in the background, but I have to tell you that I was a bit surprised with this thing about they burn your cabin down. Yes, this is not the first time that that's happened. And is that some kind of negotiating strategy? Well, how much negotiation is left over after you burn someone's cabin to the
Right.
ground? And yes, in this area, it's true. It's based on multiple sources that the BLM has this tendency to burn first and then let you do your appeal later. Really? Yes. So the presence of these people
Yeah,
here
that's
is, go ahead. We have a little lag in our show here. It's due to bandwidth. The presence of these people here is just to put sort of a damper on that rush to judgment and say, okay, look, these guys will get their day in court first. Then you can come in with the blazing torches or whatever it is that they use. Right, Mike? Mike?
right. Yeah. I understand why they're doing this, because it's incredibly demoralizing to have your house burned down. So yeah, what a great first move by them. And I would imagine that some people are so intimidated that they probably just give up.
Well, let's go ahead, and the attitude there was grim. It was serious. There were a couple of people. You know what our show is like. I mean, we can joke about just about anything, and I try. And I'll say that this first guy, you can just tell by his voice, and you'll see later by the video that he was. Seemed to have a good sense of humor, and but he was right on the front lines when the BLM arrived. Go ahead and play that for us, if you will, Mike, please.
And all my equipment was stolen off that claim, so I had really not much to do with myself. George, who was a previous friend of mine, he saw that I was kind of in a tough spot, and he was gracious enough to offer me a position here where I can have a place to stay, watch over the claim, and I can go do my own prospecting from there. And I'm very grateful for that.
So you heard a noise outside. When was this, and what was this noise that you heard?
Okay, I forgot the exact date, to be honest. It was mid-January, though. I was inside my camper with the generator running. I heard motors outside. Thought it might have been George came in. Well, I looked outside and parked right about there in front of this cat here. There was 2 4-wheelers unmarked, and the drivers were in civilian clothes. Being it was my job, I went outside to see who these trespassers were. They came in through 2 locked gates onto clearly posted private property. When I stepped outside my camper, they took off this road behind us. I then parked in the main road, waiting for them to come out so I could identify who they were.
How far away are we from the mine, the actual gold mine, at this moment?
We are actually surrounded by multiple tunnels. There's tunnels up there, tunnels over there, tunnel over there. They're all within the main tunnels are all within a quarter mile of us right now. So anyways, I parked in that road, and I could hear them running around camp on their 4-wheelers taking pictures of things. And being that my equipment was stolen previously, and being that there's stories of, crazy environmental terrorists and things like that, and I'm out here in the middle of nowhere by myself, I was pretty frightened, to be honest with you. The 4-wheelers then came up the road, and I stepped out. I stepped in front of them and asked them, who are you? What are you doing on my property? I did have an unloaded pistol on me for protection, and they said they identified themselves as BLM. So they showed me their badge. I said, "Excuse me, I'm sorry for the pistol. Didn't know who you were." I put the pistol away. After that, they said they'd never really identified exactly what they were doing, but they demanded that I let them through. And being that was not in danger, I let them through and told the claim owner about the story. Since then, they've been harassing the claim owners about taking the mine away from them. And I've also had special agents from the BLM harassing me about pressing charges and trying to intimidate me into talking to them about the mine operation.
Did you feel any harassment at the time, or any pressure from this first set of gentlemen who had come here and were buzzing around without talking to you first?
The immediate pressure was, who are these people? Are they here to hurt me? Are they here to damage the equipment? After I did stop them and they identified themselves as BLM, they were then quite rude to me. Almost, how dare I approach my overseers and ask them who they are, type of deal. They asked me, is this 1872? You think you just go approach people with guns in your hand and stuff like that? They just talked down to me. And so, yes, I felt very disrespected.
In your understanding of the law, does the federal government, does the Bureau of Land Management have the right to come on your property anytime they want to, unannounced?
The BLM are allowed to come onto these, even though these claims we control the surface. Part of what allows you to occupy your claim is that you must be mining, because they don't want people squatting here. So BLM is allowed to come in here for the sole purpose of checking to make sure we are actually mining. So it's kind of ironic they're trying to stop us from mining right now, but the law says we have to be mining to keep the claim. So that being said, they also told the claim owner prior that if they ever did come down here, they'd give us forewarning. And also, as a professional courtesy, I'm home. I'm parked right there. They were driving circles around my camper. Knock on the door. Let me know who you are. Just professional courtesy,
Well, you probably shouldn't comment about what you think that they said to the mine owner. However, when you were contacted later by other BLM representatives, what did they tell you to which you were an eyewitness?
You were telling me the special agent. What was the special agent saying to me when they were calling me? The special agent called me, basically I was in Tacoma at the time. The special agent was down in Salem. He wanted to drive up to Tacoma that day to speak with me about that incident and also about what was happening at the mine. I later then got in contact with the claim owners who, being wiser, insisted that I needed a lawyer before I speak to this man. And I got a lawyer, talked to the lawyer, and they said, probably best just not to talk. Anything you say, they will use against you. They're manipulative. They're evil people. That's the words the lawyer even said. The lawyer is local here, and he's dealt with BLM before. So since then, the special agent has called me on several different occasions. I just let it go to voicemail. But I thought it was very interesting. The thing that's very interesting to me is that this happened about a month after that initial contact. And between that month is when they started trying to take this claim. The claim owner started to fight back. To me, I think they were kind of throwing a hissy fit because they weren't getting their way and getting this claim so easily. So they started coming after the weakest link. Yeah, and it's interesting to me that, he's threatening me with pressing charges, DA, grand jury. And oh, by the way, could you give us some information about the mine? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That's the impression I got from him.
How would you summarize this entire situation from your personal point of view?
I think BLM wants to socialize this mine, and I think it's a crying shame. I don't want them to take it from George and Rick. Like I said, they both gave me an opportunity when I was down, and they want to take this mine and they want to burn that cabin down. They want to take the equipment out of here, and what they do with it from there, I'm not sure. My personal theory is that recently BLM has been coming out with a plan to lease claims instead of letting people stake them for free. So essentially they would rent the claim to other people. So this claim right here has millions and millions and millions of dollars of proven reserves. If they could take this claim from us, they could then lease it to someone for a pretty penny.
Well, Mike, so what's your impression of this gentleman that we spoke to? Keep in mind now, we're going to be showing you full motion, high definition video. I mean, it's beautiful video, but we were rushing to get this out to you. So that's just a still with a pretty nice audio for you to see so that we could get this on today's live show. What's your impression of this guy, Mike?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, he just seems like a very nice young man who, had an idea that he wanted to pursue mining and learn how to do it and, try to make a living off of, pulling some gold out of the hill and, just a nice guy.
Now, he's basically not the mine owner. He's the fellow that is watching over it for him, because they're not going to spend 24/7 there at the mine. And as he said, it's got several things happen. But he was several shafts. He was the first point of contact for the BLM, but he had to go out and say, who are you and what are you doing here? Because it wasn't obvious who they were. They were not in any kind of uniforms.
Right. And to be clear, it was the one BLM guy, and then it was the BLM's contract deputy. That would be the deputy that is that the BLM pays for, who is a Josephine County deputy. So
now that's just an interesting small point. Maybe I know what the guy said to us. Maybe that part's a little bit off, because it's sort of hard to believe that a Josephine County deputy that's seconded to the BLM would not be wearing any kind of uniform, no kind of badge, no kind of identification. That's a little hard.
Yes. Yeah. Not to mention the fact that to take that type of an attitude with a resident of your own county, and if you dive into the charter, as Dale and I have been doing, this is sort of exactly the opposite of the angle that they're supposed to be taking towards the residents of the county. They're supposed to be involved in protecting their rights. Now, it's certainly I guess wouldn't be outside that deputy's duties to serve a summons or something along those lines. But this idea that you should be arrogant and abusive is that rubs me the wrong way, but it's all too common.
There are times where law enforcement decides that overwhelming force or a forceful attitude is going to make people back down, but the days of officer friendly are long over. Look, it may very well be, because we're not judges. I mean, we're all judges in a way, but you know what I mean. Perhaps a case can be made that somehow these folks have done something wrong bureaucratically, even though this has been there all this time. Perhaps that can be said. But I believe that there should be the possibility of having your day in court before anybody burns your cabin down. And it must be said again, that does happen sometimes. Really? Yeah, apparently it does. And so the how lucky these miners are to have the Oath Keepers step forward and say, we're just going to put a little bit of a damper on the federal government until you've had your fair day, your fair chance in court.
Yes. I mean, could you imagine if they had to pay for the type of security that these people are doing because of their altruism? It would certainly be very expensive, and they probably couldn't afford it. But really, all the Oath Keepers are doing are giving them the same type of security they should already have with their constitutional rights and the rights given them to them by the laws we all have to obey.
Quite correct, sir. Quite correct. Okay, now we got a chance to speak with Joseph Rice. He's the administrator, the director, the administrator for Josephine County Oath Keepers. What director? What's his title? You get the idea. He's the top guy at Josephine County Oath Keepers. Yeah. And so we're going to put up a still. Full motion video will be available later, and with an audio clip from what Joseph had to say to us. Mike?
You're Joseph Rice. You're the coordinator for Josephine County Oath Keepers. So tell us, Joseph, just a little background on this. Most people have a good idea of what's happening and what the current situation is.
Well, at our monthly Oath Keeper meeting, the two mining claim owners, Rick and George, approached us, and they had an issue with their constitutional Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, mainly their issue to due process. They explained that they were served notice by the BLM, that they had a cease and desist order, and when they were handed that notice of cease and desist, George stated to Deputy Stanton that we're law-abiding constitutional people. Whereas Deputy Stanton turned to him and said, I have issues with the Constitution. That brought them to our Oath Keeper meeting. Oath Keepers support the Constitution and the principles of the Constitution. And we understand that the document is to be one to respect and not try and work around. So with that, we came up and understood the situation, what was up here, and they requested that Oath Keepers of Josephine County provide them a security team to protect their Fifth Amendment right to due process and their Fourth Amendment right to a legal search and seizure, mainly the seizure of their property or the destruction of their property.
Let me ask you a question about this. How do you know for sure what it was that Deputy Stanton said to them? Because that's a pretty provocative thing to say.
They provided us two sworn affidavits, notarized and signed.
So you decided to help out in this situation. And what was the first action that you took?
We came up, we reviewed their legal documentation. We reviewed the notices from BLM. In the review of that documentation, we had seen BLM gave them a date of the 25th of April to remove everything off of this mining claim, to include the cabin behind us. There was nothing scheduled in hearing or court appearance affording them their Fifth Amendment due process. Based on that, a decision was made to secure the site, specifically the mining claim, until they literally get their day in court.
Now, we're the first media to arrive. You haven't been throwing the place open to thousands of people who might like to volunteer, or all the media flying above or whatever. Why are you being so cautious?
This is an active security operation. We have highly skilled and trained professionals in here. Out of respect for their willingness to come in here and volunteer, and for the operational security of the mission, we've limited access, and we've really constrained that access. Basically, we don't owe the media any favors.
Well, some people are saying, now, wait a second, you're calling this a standoff with the BLM. Is this a standoff against the BLM?
I've never said this was a standoff. And to the contrary, if you go to oathkeepersjoco.com, at the very top of the page, it states our mission and it gives a notice that says this is not a standoff. That has been out there since day one. So if those people are making those statements, they are confused, uneducated, and speaking out of ignorance.
Now, you did put out a general call for help to the nation, to other Oath Keepers and maybe other people who have some interest in the government and their involvement in our lives.
That's correct.
So that's always a double-edged sword, of course. You get all kinds of help, and then occasionally you get people who are not so helpful. What is your opinion about that?
My opinion is this is a multi-layer, very complex operation. We have the security end of it, we have the logistics end of it, we have the communications end of it, we have the medical end of it, we have transportations. So those take physical bodies to fill that need to support this operation. We are in a very remote location. You're not running down to the store. With that, we have protocols in place to vet people as they come into the operation. When they choose to volunteer and come up here, they are asked to email their intentions, what they're offering to provide. That goes through a vetting process. They are then selected for arrival, and then we have arrival protocol and processing once they come in to vet them.
So for critics who may say, well, now, wait a minute, Joseph Rice, your mere presence in this location is causing more angst. It's causing more pressure. What is your answer to that?
Well, I guess my direct answer to that is, why did the mining claim owners feel they had to call us in here? The Constitution is to constrain government. He was being denied his Fifth Amendment rights. So are we to stand by the sideline and not have that occur? This is where the BLM put the cart before the horse. We were requested to be in here. We agreed to come in here after verifying what the claim was, what was occurring, and he had a situation where he did not trust his government to abide by his constitutional due process. They were going to come in here before he had his day in court and destroy or remove his personal property.
There's been some discussion of the BLM supposedly burning down cabins and that kind of thing. Does that really take place, or is that just an internet tale?
It has happened. It has happened in the Josephine County. It's happened on this district, and these claim owners have directly experienced the loss of cabins. BLM comes in and they burn cabins to get them off the land.
Now, we're in Josephine County, Oregon. What kind of response have you gotten, helping or not, from the county commissioners, from the county sheriff? What role are they playing in helping solve this situation?
I have maintained open lines of communication with federal and local authorities. Their choice to get involved or stand up is their decision and their choice. I have encouraged them to do so, but that's a question you need to ask them.
Mike has a strong opinion about this, and you'll see over my shoulder, here's an interview that we did with the sheriff, and basically asked him, do you think that in this situation, a press release, only a press release, is enough? Well, yes.
Yeah. Yes,
so
it surely is.
As Mike's been pointing out, we've been doing now, we've started a series about the county charter in Josephine County, Oregon, and what's expected. On first reading, what does the county charter say about this kind of thing and the responsibility of county government, Mike?
Well, it's number one, the responsibility of the sheriff to make sure that laws or that there isn't enforcement of law that violates people's constitutional rights. and if there is any attempted enforcement of laws, and I think there's a big controversy here because are these laws or these administrative rules put up by the BLM, which has its own court system, which has its own enforcement that is happening outside the normal rule of law, which comes from Congress. And so anyway, there is a bit of controversy as to whether or not the sheriff ought to be assisting the BLM in any of these actions, and then whether or not they should be protecting the owners of this mine from having their rights violated by the federal government.
So one of the bits about of controversy, which should be settled in a court of law, not with a flaming torch, is in 1866. Well, this mine was started before there was a state of Oregon. And the original 1866 law says something about mining rights. And then the 1872 law said this 1872 law supersedes the 1866 one. So then there was a 1955, I know a lot of numbers, there was a 1955 administrative act, is our understanding of it, that made that more clear about what the federal government can do and can't do. These fellows are saying, look, this mine has been here for well over 100 years. And so what do you think that you're doing and telling us to leave? And so far that what we've heard, we're trying to piece this together, of course. So far what we've heard is, well, the federal government is saying it changed ownership. Therefore, you have to revert, you have to go all the way back to step one. Really? Now, one, is that the way that we want that? The citizens in general. Number two, is that constitutional? Does it fit in with the 1872 Mining Act? And obviously, in my opinion, and I think in Mike's too, they need to get their day in court before you solve the problem for them.
Right.
Look, one other thing is, you may have noticed I was a little tough on Joseph. You know from watching our show here on badcounty.com that the attitude we take with everybody is we're not in your pocket. You may be our friends. We're going to ask you the tough questions. This isn't like our local newspaper who doesn't ask tough questions and doesn't go there and doesn't want to go there and has shown no interest, basically, in most of this story. And in our local radio station, KJO, they're just not interested as far as we can tell. And so not to follow through on it. If we're going to be there, we're not going to take anybody's total word for it. I asked him, well, what proof do you have? They've got 2 affidavits. That's great. I prefer to have videotape. It speaks for itself.
Yes.
So in the absence of that, we're always going to take an attitude of, yes, we're friendly towards you. However, we want to know what all the facts are, and then we'll make up our mind. Mike?
Yeah, I agree. Enough said.
Okay, so now the media have played some kind of role in this. The media played some kind of role, and gosh, we did do everything. I did everything that I could to get their media representative to talk about the way that they've been treated in the media. As one example, and I'm not sure I went to great detail here, but one example is Channel 12. Our local television station that represents ABC, they put up a story on their website, on their Facebook site, that has said, you know, law enforcement officials called in, and they put in a file photo, an aerial file photo of a SWAT vehicle. There's no SWAT involved in this. What the heck are you doing? Why? This has a tendency to ramp everything up and make it seem like, oh, it's not only a standoff, it's an armed standoff, and more than that, why, you know, lives could be at stake. Hey, wait a minute. That's not responsible journalism. So just like we talk about the county commissioners and the things that they say and do, this was a lie. That was a file photo, and it's of a city police vehicle. The county doesn't have any SWAT vehicles. So Channel 12, What were you doing? And when I called and talked with them, as we've done in another instance where they faked a story, completely faked the story, they faked the story. Mike was there too. When they did that, we called them on it, as we do with everybody, because we're going to try to serve the truth. And they said, well, there was kind of a mistake, and perhaps we were in the wrong place. You weren't in the wrong place. You were in your file photos.
Yeah, here's the photo that they put up in the story. I grabbed it on my phone because I knew that as soon as they heard from us about this, that they were going to delete this photograph. But this is the photo they put up in the story. It's just a short little clip on their website. Law enforcement authorities responded to what Josephine County Oathkeepers are calling a sugar pine mine security operation. Now that clearly conjures up images of men dressed in black with AR-15 rifles and snipers on the hillside. So
exactly. And here's the other thing about this. When I called and talked with them, what they were telling me is that, well, don't worry about that, because we went to the wrong place and we shot a picture of a vehicle. This is not the picture of a vehicle that was shot from the wrong place. If you put that back up again, and can you zoom in on that a little bit, Mike?
I can't on this one. I do have another one that's a little tighter.
Okay. The thing is,
I'll try and get that one.
That is an aerial photo. They weren't accidentally flying over the wrong place. Come on. Don't try to kid us about this. This was picked up as, well, that's a kind of an interesting photo, and it sort of matches with the story, except it doesn't. Why not just show a guided missile frigate? That it's not about that either. And so it's irresponsible journalism, and we strive to be not that. See, no.
Yeah, it's
well, that's
yes.
not an aerial
photo. That is not an aerial photograph.
However, that's not an aerial photo. Huh.
No. However, it is a photograph.
Where's the one I saw? Okay, go ahead.
I don't know, Dale. That's a good question.
Yes.
This one is it's the not Josephine County. It is the Grants Pass Police's SWAT truck, and according to the sheriff, he doesn't even have a SWAT truck. So there.
Perhaps it was a low-flying aircraft. Okay.
Yes, it was. Yeah, a low-flying aircraft.
Thank you for that truth in advertising, Dale Matthews. Okay, we do what we can. Okay.
Yes,
I stand corrected.
That's always right all the time.
That's not an aerial photo. Okay. So I'm not going to try to gloss over that. So what I did was I talked with Mary Emmerich. She is their public information officer, and you can see I'm trying to get her to tell us story of how they've been dealt, and I told her ahead of time that I was going to ask her, how has the media been dealing with you? And here's what her answer was.
Mary Emmerich, you are in charge of media relations. You're the PIO, the Public Information Officer, for the Sugar Pine Mine incident. Activity. Tell us what it is that you do.
Actually, I'm the public information officer for Oathkeepers of Josephine County. So whatever Oathkeepers here in this county do, I'm the one that talks to the media or makes arrangements to invite media in.
We're the first media to be invited to come up here to the mine. We're the first ones to see the mine altogether. Why did you choose badcounty.com?
First of all, we've already had a relationship with you, and we know that your goal is to tell the truth. Working with the media so far has been problematic. I have worked hard to vet people, to try to tell them the honest story of why we're here, and that story doesn't always get told, unfortunately.
How so? What are some of the things that have happened where you felt that you've been dealt with a little unfairly by the media?
Well, some of the media have their own objective to making the story bigger than it is. They want an event, and I've been told that specifically. They want it to be like other events that have already happened. In fact, I've also been asked, is this going to be like Ferguson, Missouri? And I said, absolutely not. We're looking for a peaceful operation. We're protecting Fifth Amendment rights of due process, and that is why we were here, plain and simple. But we get re-edited and edited. Our story is out everywhere in the media, on the internet, on social media, and it's not always accurate.
Can you give us an example of a time when you said something or someone in this operation said something and then it got turned around?
Well, for example, we've had reports that shots have been fired. That is not true. We've had reports that there is a stand down. That's not true. We are operational security, and that will continue until this issue is resolved. We will be on site.
So there was a little to do with Channel 12, who did a story about this, printed a story on their website, and then used an unfortunate picture. Can you tell us about that?
Well, you know, I don't know what their purpose was or what they were trying to do, but I know a lot of times part of their story appears to be something that I have told, and it's just, for example, one or two sentences that I've said that are accurate, but they're paired up with a lot of other misinformation.
Specifically, you seem to have had some kind of misunderstanding, shall we put it, with the Medford Mail Tribune here in Oregon. What happened with that one?
Well, I did do a short interview with the Mail Tribune, and apparently they didn't understand the facts of the story or already had an agenda of a story to tell. So unfortunately, that doesn't help anyone on either side. Let's get the facts out there. I will talk to anyone, but the understanding has to be that you're going to tell the story correctly and factually. If you don't, we're not interested in talking to you again.
What was the thing that they said that you felt was wrong?
Once again, it's pairing up facts with a short, brief statement that they'll take. And, you know, they claim to have information from the miners or about the mines or about what's going on here. And none of that was part of the interview or conversation that we had. So they very much extrapolated the story.
There's something that can be called the elevator speech. That is, if you get stuck on an elevator with someone and they ask you, hey, what's happening over at that mine? You tell them in a few brief sentences. What is the elevator speech for this situation here?
The elevator speech, as you call it, is that we have been asked to provide security for the miners while they go through due process rights. They get their day in court, which they're in process of, and that's why we're here. That's the end of the story. We have people all across the United States coming to join us or giving us their support in any way that they can. There will be a huge rally this Thursday when the miners turn in additional legal paperwork. And so we're all going to meet at the BLM office in Medford. We have Congress people coming in. We have people who've been involved in other sorts of situations like this against the BLM who will be there at that rally. And we hope to get a very correct story told. What we've done to ensure that is we have embedded two reporters, one local and one national. And those people will have access to more information because they tell it honestly. They're willing to play by the rules and the guidelines that we set up for security. And so we're happy to have them on board.
We'll endeavor to do that as well. For badcounty.com, this is Dale Matthews.
Okay.
So, Mike, we have at the moment, this is a live show, and if you occasionally hear slightly garbled audio, that is not because our recording was bad, it's because it's coming out through the internet that way. And that can happen. We have 5 times more live viewers this evening than we've ever had before. And we've been doing this now. This is our 110th show, something like that. So in a row, we do this every night at 7 o'clock. We're going to try to bring you the actual news. We'll admit when we made a mistake, although I'm not going to keep going over that. Stop asking me. And we point out when someone else makes mistakes. Mike, what is your elevator speech on this situation? What's happening out at the mine? If your wife or your next door neighbor, Tom, asks you, Mike, what's happening over there at that mine? What would be your summation of what's going on there, sir?
Well, this is a government overreach yet again. They come in and they may or may not have a valid claim. And they serve a summons, but then the summons says, you need to remove all of your possessions. You need to take your cabin off of here. You need to close up the mine. Does that mean you fill the tunnels in or blast them and collapse the top in? I have no idea what that means. But if you did have to close up the mine and so that it couldn't be accessed anymore. And that would be tremendously expensive to go back in after the fact. In any event, they are being deprived of their due process, in my opinion. And I think that this should all happen in court, where in a real court, not a BLM court. This should happen in a U.S. court where they have to present their case. And then the minor or the defendant is able to defend themselves against the charge. And, as we would all expect to if something happened to us. I think they're being deprived of it. I personally think the sheriff ought to take a little bit more active role in, advising the federal government that they are operating in a way that is potentially dangerous to depriving a member of this county, a citizen of this county, of their constitutional rights, and that then you're not to do that. And in short, I think that the Oathkeepers are providing security in a very effective manner. It was formidable, I would say. That would be my word for it. And I think that it's a good thing that they're there, and hopefully this all comes out well and the miners are able to stay there. That was my personal opinion. That's up to the court, I would imagine now.
Well, here's what you can expect from us. Here's what we're going to do as journalists. Many times you'll hear about some kind of incident that happens somewhere in the country, and you kind of wonder what the local media may be saying about it, because perhaps they have more access to it. We will continue following with this story. We'll talk with the people who are actually there on the ground. We're the very first ones to be allowed in. We will follow up on this, but we'll ask the tough questions of everybody on all sides. We will share with you the documentation, the affidavits, where they said, well, here's what was said, here's what was done, here's the attitude they had toward us. We're not going to play favorites on this, and we don't play favorites on anything. We'll have our opinions and we'll share those with you, but we'll make it clear what our opinions are and where the facts are. And so if you want to know what's happening in Galice, Oregon, with the sugar pine mine, this is really the only place you can go.